Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's great to be back in this very same room to address a very important topic of great relevance to implementation and a very great relevance as well to lives and livelihoods. The work on the Lotus initiatives on transport have been very much welcome from the very beginning, with support from the climate champions and the work in partnership with governments. I'm happy to be in this meeting today in the presence of His Excellency, the Minister of Transport, the very able and formidable and achiever minister who managed to make major transformation in the transport systems of Egypt, of course, with great political support and leadership from His Excellency, the President of the Republic, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. We see the transformation coming from one of the areas in the Delta where I see now the impact of this kind of development in the network system and how it is managing to make transaction cost lowers, emissions being lowered as well, but the ambitions for lowering the emissions and enhancing the efficiency of the transport system of Egypt at large and the busy cities, the old and the new, are not stopping at what we have today. It's great to see great plans for the future in full agreement as well. Great to see the Minister sitting next to the Minister of Environment and the coordinator of our work here, that all of what we do in the efficiency is being as well supported and fully aligned with the priorities for actions to reduce emissions and based on the NDCs and to mobilize finance for that. One of the very well-established economists in developments and sustainability, Professor Collier, the professor of economics in Oxford, he's just describing cities and local communities in a very simple way. Cities as the ultimate connectors. If they fail to connect, they would fail to be cities. As simple as that. So it's basically about the efficiency, enhancements of activities, getting people economically and socially networked with the lowest of the transaction costs and the lowest of transmission. So what we try to do here, and basically in connection of that holistic approach adopted in this summit and the conference at large and the thematic days, the Lotus, as we understand it, proposes 3 action areas that collectively address the challenges but are individually distinct and specific. The scale-up of investments for e-vehicles and sustainable mobility infrastructure. This is about an overall ecosystem that needs to be supported. Empowering and investing in informal transportation, including efforts to decarbonize. Again, the connectivity here and the interlinkages between climate action, SDG 13, and SDG 11 cannot be undermined. And the last part, which is basically about building capacity to develop integrated multimodal policy frameworks in low and middle income countries. And this cannot and should not stop just in the sophisticated infrastructure. It's about the human capital that is dealing with the developed and advanced infrastructure. So this is very much basically what we mean when we are adopting implementation, but with a holistic approach, with focusing on localized and adapted solutions. But for all of that, we require more generous finance to support the work. Lotus would require funding. The examples that are coming, including the assessments through the 2 new breakthroughs, which are announced in the State of Climate Action Report 2022, published by IRENA and others this October 2022, around 40 kilometers of rapid transport and 2 kilometers of high-quality bike lanes. It's basically, well, great work, but we need really to enlarge and enhance the kind of work. What kind of funding for that? Public finance is still the main source, either through taxpayers' money or through borrowing abroad in order to finance the activities. And that gets me reminded with my final point. The system of finance available today is not fair, and it is not efficient at the same time, and we need to change that. It's great to see representatives from developing economies and emerging markets in this room, but we see as well representatives of G7 and G20 countries who control the bulk of capital of the multilateral development banks and the IFIs. Areas related to climate action needs really to be revolutionized, and we argue that a maximum of 1%, this could be revolutionary, but bear with me just for a few seconds. If you borrow abroad, even at 0% cost, it will entail high exchange rate risks and matters that we need really to deal with when it comes to the cost of borrowing, even if it is at zero rate cost. Of course, we know that borrowing goes beyond the 0%, and in many cases you borrow at 3%, 4%, and if you borrow commercially, this goes at 12 to 14%. Not fair, not fair. So the proposal here is very simple. 10 years grace, add to that 20 years for maturity to be added to around 30 years maturity, and get the cost to be flat rate 1%. Is that doable? Yes. We see some funds like the Green Climate Fund going with maturities for 30 to 40 years. We see the newly established RST of the IMF is advancing finance with grace period of 10.5 years. So what's our proposal? It's very simple. Get the grace period 10 years, pay back in 30, make it flat for 1%. If this is the case, supported by technical assistance within the 1% of cost of borrowing, that will enable ministers and mayors and governors to do a better job dealing with sustainability as they should, making matters better when it comes to mitigation. And the beauty of the transport sector and the work with cities, it's a mix of mitigation and adaptation at the same time. Mix of reducing emissions and enhancing resilience. If we fail to do that, unfortunately, we'll be seeing us stuck with loss and damage, with people in trouble in their cities and in their dwellings. And we have many examples from Pakistan in Asia to Africa in the South to Latin America and even in the advanced economies. Solutions are there, funding is there. What is missing is political leadership to make the change. We hope that in this very conference, before the end of it, we need to see some sort of solutions supporting the technical work, the leadership in the sectors, but that requires definitely political leadership. Thank you so much.